Welcome everybody to the Greatness Glory podcast. In this session, we are gonna have a casual conversation in regards to the role of morality in spirituality and how it is important, what is the meaning of morality really, and stuff like that. Welcome, Kevin, to your podcast. How are you doing? Do you have any question you want to start with?
Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate it. I just realized I'm not sure exactly what is the definition of morality, if we could even agree on one.
Oh, that's a very good question. I have one video. I don't know if it's still on YouTube actually. But I wanted to talk about this actually. You see, in different cultures, different religions or traditions, they don't always agree on the same things. Let's say something which is immoral in some culture, it is considered maybe even moral or good in some other cultures. Or like the concept of what is virtue and what is sin also. For a Jewish person, let's say, if you work on the sacred Saturday, it's a heavily big sin, right? But for almost anybody else that follows any other religion, it's not a sin. Same thing exists also, same contradiction in different traditions. So I think there are certain rules that are limited to the followers of specific religions, but I don't consider them to be universal, existential. Like, if you were to say, what is the real universal meaning of virtue and sin or morality? I would say, with all years of my study and experience, I realized that the only meaning that is universal for morality, for virtue and sin, is that anything that harms you or somebody else consciously is a sin in a way. Anything that does something helpful and good to you and other people or other beings, animals, is a virtue. Basically, anything constructive is a virtue. Anything that helps you and others become better, grow, heal, become more prosperous, and whatever. I think the intention is the key here. Speaking about karma, or in a way, the same thing as virtue and sin, it's the intention that matters. For example, I might argue that if you put a knife in somebody's belly, whether a doctor is doing that to save that person or somebody is doing that to kill the person makes the difference. Otherwise, it's not the action itself always or never, but it's the intention behind it. So morality, I think, is just having high values that help yourself and others and are constructive, no matter what religion says what about what type of action. If they define something harmful as okay, I find it very difficult to agree with that opinion, and I have not seen any enlightened being, any Buddha, any avatar, any guru, any real philosopher to say otherwise. So I think that would be my definition.
Okay, I like that. So we can agree it's a set of values rather.
Values that are defined by what? Again, the values are defined if the values are constructive and helpful. Doesn't matter if somebody says something which is harmful, obviously there are people in the world, followers of specific religions, that have like not noble intentions to, in order to, I don't know, promote their religion. They're willing to do something and put it on God, and they say, okay, God says this, so it's even sacred. Yeah, so
Okay, thank you. And what is the role of morality in spirituality then?
yeah, very good question. Let's talk about it like this. Some of the most advanced and um, respectable systems of spiritual growth that I'm gonna name a few, like yoga, as well as the very complex system of Buddhism, they both actually start their first step by a set of rules that are designed to prevent you from adding more karma, more suffering to your life. Because if you keep doing harmful things to yourself and others, and at the same time trying to build something constructive within yourself or rise beyond your limitations, then it's not gonna work. It's like you're trying to fill bucket that has a hole in it, and then doesn't matter how much practice you do, how much prayer you do, how much good things you do. If you at the same time you do also harmful things to yourself and to others, it's not gonna helpful. Let's say I put poison in my body every day. Let's say I drink a lot of alcohol. And then at the same time, I try to take some medicine to heal myself. Any good doctor, any traditional doctor or whatever, they would probably say it's very, very unlikely that this treatment is going to work. So, the role of morality in spirituality, let's define it like this. I think if you're trying to rise beyond your limitation, if you're trying to create a positive environment within yourself, if you try to build positive energy within yourself, those negative acts deplete your good energies. They bring you down. They clutter your mind. Let's say very simple logic. When you do bad things, your conscience bothers you. Your mind becomes more chaotic, more complicated, right? We need to first stop doing things that sabotage our progress and our mental, physical health, and then ascend, then progress in our spiritual progress. I would say if we consider it like this, we discussed this before also. This was actually explained in the book Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks very beautifully. There are different energies or vibrations of being, emotions, thoughts. So let's say if the lowest vibration is the vibration of fear and the highest vibration is the vibration of love and gratitude, you would want to think about the things, qualities that elevate your state of being. You would want to do things and say things that elevate your state of being. And this obviously is even a health thing. When you create positive thoughts and emotions, it improves your health. More than that, it creates a positive state of being, peace and joyfulness and so on. I think really this is very basic thing that can be understood by everyone, that when you develop negative thoughts and emotions, then it harms you. That's my opinion on this.
Thank you, Isaac. And then the question becomes, can you be a moral person or not a moral person, let's say, and spiritual?
No, I think I explained that. It's very, very difficult, almost impossible, because let's say another example.
I can bring you millions of people who are not moral and believe are highly spiritual.
Well, ignorance is mother of all suffering and bondage.
And that ignorance is a bliss.
No, only for ignorant people, it's a bliss. I mean, I was just saying, if you, let's say, if I take a knife and cut my hand and I put some balm on it to heal it, and then tomorrow I again do that, then put the balm on it, do you think the hand is going to get healed ever?
Yes, yes. You brought up the word sin, and Dr. Peterson refers to the fact that the original Greek meaning of the word sin means to miss the point. And if morality is a set of values designed as a compass to guide humanity for, as you say, constructive, maybe being peaceful, more social, less violent, more civil, more evolved, then the role of spirituality, which has been lost when it comes to religion, organized religion, cults, is rather vague. Like, would you mind also like explaining or defining the word spirituality in your view, just so we have a definition?
Yeah. We can investigate the meaning of spirituality in a few different ways. But my definition, the first definition that I like is spirituality is moving to experience yourself as a spirit. What is a spirit? It's deepest part of your being that most people likely don't have experience of it or access to it. And the whole purpose of a spirituality is to know yourself, right? If you know yourself beyond this body, which is not you, it's just a mass of flesh that is decaying and will die one day, and realize, okay, what is beyond this body and even your identity, then you have realized yourself as the spirit. Now you can call this a spirit by different names. You say God nature, inner being, soul, Buddha nature, and so on. But ultimately, it's something which is not necessarily physical. According to all traditions, it's immortal. It's the part of you that doesn't suffer unless you identify yourself by your body. So we talked a lot about consciousness. If your consciousness is identified with your identity, which is a made up thing by society and your body, then whatever happens to your body and mind controls you and keeps you in the cycle of suffering. So why is it that Eastern religions and many other traditions, they say the goal of human birth is to become free from the cycle of birth and death, and the way to do that is to transcend yourself as a limited being? Is the same thing. If you don't transcend your body and mind, then you keep remaining in this cycle, whether it's reincarnation or you go to a different world and suffer or whatever. We don't want to get into that now. So that's what I think about it.
Thank you. I love that definition. That's actually the first time I hear it, experiencing yourself as a spirit. And I know for a fact of many super religious people who feel like spirituality has no place in the Word of God, that is their Bible, their guiding light. And I think that's a shame. So the question becomes, do you feel like this definition of a spirituality is universal, or rather every system has come up with their own unique definition?
I think it's universal from my studies of different authentic traditions. Well, if a system comes up and says something which is not in alignment with this, then I think there is something wrong with it. I can say, like, if people say, oh, spirituality doesn't have a role in our religion or system, that's a misunderstanding. Maybe the person that says it is ignorant. It doesn't have a they don't have an understanding of what it means, because when you are full of blind beliefs, then you don't have any more space to find what is the reality. I used to think about this actually and laugh. Back in Iran, where I was born, the mullahs, the same ones that do evil things, they hurt people, they control people. If you leave your religion, you need to be hanged, for example. If you promote another religion, you need to be hanged. And then, I don't know, if you don't wear hijab, they're gonna um, whiplash you, and so many other horrible things. Actually, they're called the name they tell to define those people. The general name is actually exactly in Farsi. If you translate it, means a spiritual, but that's the only thing that they're not. Because how can you be a spiritual and be blind and just do things that harm other people and go against the universe, against the nature of universe, whether you want to call that nature, dharma, Tao, or whatever else? It doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't, but then at the same time, so we're saying uh, it is a universal definition, but not if you're ignorant and are basically using religion to abuse people, which we call spiritual
Let's
abuse.
consider this example. For probably 99% of people, the universal definition of Earth is being round. But some people, with some excuses that don't even make sense, they want to say Earth is flat. So it's their ignorance. I'm not saying this as an insult. I'm just saying it's very obvious. Like something as simple as that. People want to say, no, no, you are stupid. Earth is flat. And it couldn't be simpler than this, than that Earth is round, that like it's been said in all different ancient systems, and there are many modern reasons. It's as clear as daylight. Now if somebody says, no, you're stupid, like Earth is flat, and my definition is the real universal definition. So it all depends on deep study without taking sides, and researching and deep contemplation and studying many many different things to come to understanding of what is the real reality. Like I always say this, I started my journey as a spiritual explorer. I studied all the big religions of the world since I was a teenager, and the more I studied year by year, I realized that the core of all of them are same, or at least some of them, they had the same core. Now if later it was messed up, that's a different thing. So I think when you study multiple sources and you think and you contemplate, just like a scientist is looking for the truth, and he doesn't want to come to conclusion if it's a good scientist and say, okay, this guy said it, so it's true. He wants to find a very strong evidence for it, or at least in terms of spirituality and religion, if you go and study 10, 15 different religions and spiritual traditions, and you see that in many of them the definition of morality is like what I said, or the meaning of spirituality is just like what I said, then logically it makes sense to say, okay, the definition that this 12 systems, 13 systems out of 15 have must be correct. It also makes sense if I match it with different sciences, like some of the modern sciences, some of the neuroscience or psychology or things like that. You see, it also makes sense. It's also healthier for you to have morality. It also makes you more peaceful. It makes you more happy after all. After all, we are only looking for a state of peace and happiness. And whether it's modern science or spirituality, they both agree that you cannot develop bad qualities in you that harm you and others and then try to be peaceful at the same time.
Thank you. And you brought up flat Earth. I have friends who'll argue with you until sunrise that the Earth is flat. Don't you feel humanity gets into conflict and trouble when we're so sure of ourselves?
Yeah, of course, that happens.
So the question would be, as far as morality and ethics is concerned, when it comes to being 100% sure, how does spirituality look at it? And how does systems of morality look at it?
Well, systems of morality, as we discussed, mostly they agree on many things that are moral, but then there are some flaws here and there. Sometimes they consider some things which are not universal, like the sacred Shabbat or Saturday thing that we mentioned, to be like a virtue or moral thing. And almost no other system believes in that. Now somebody wants to say, oh, yeah, all other systems are bullshit. What do you want me to say to that? But after all, the definition needs to make sense by science and psychology and the ancient sciences, as we discussed. It needs to be leading you toward becoming better and more peaceful, more happy, more energetic, more higher vibration. I
Mhm.
think it depends on the level of knowledge. So in spiritual traditions like yoga or Buddhism or so on, they say the root of all suffering is ignorance. It's actually the real root is not even lack of morality or bad behavior or whatever. It's ignorance. So those people who want to do harmful things and they call it a good thing, obviously they are ignorant. Why are they ignorant? Because they are blind followers. They don't have an open mind to explore the truth without taking sides. This is a big issue. Even when you argue with most of those people and you provide basic logic, you see that the issue is they argue to prove their point. If you consider you already know the truth and you just want to prove it to me to prove that I'm ignorant, then you are not seeking. There is no way I can help you to understand. Because if you think, oh, I already know the answer, now I just want to argue with you. Apparently, it seems like I want to find the truth or I'm open to it, but I'm actually only arguing to prove my point. And this has been discussed in psychology as well. So your mind is completely closed. It's not going to work. Like, as much as I try, it's not going to work. There's a saying they say if you try to wake up a sleeping person, it works. But if you try to wake up a person who pretends to be asleep, you cannot wake him up. So I guess those people are a part of this play of universe. I don't know what to do with them, but all we can do is to share the truth and hopefully they will be open to understand it.
Thank you. As we were speaking about like ignorance and value systems, the one word that comes to my mind is tolerance. And I think if as a value we are more tolerant, then we're more accepting of other views, other perspectives, other ways people perceive reality. Nowadays, we've reached a point in the business world, in our day-to-day busy lives in 21st century, that money is so enmeshed with everything we do. Where do you see morality and money and spirituality in the modern day? As I know you're an entrepreneur and have worked with a lot of people in business as a professional, do you see humanity making progress in terms of sort of separating spirituality from money, or is it getting worse in your opinion?
A little bit getting into a more of a holistic philosophical subject here. Really, everything that we do is about us in a way, whether it's money or relationship or spirituality. I call a person who is a spiritual a person who puts the priority as knowing himself. I call that person a spiritual. It doesn't matter what else that person does as long as it's not harmful again. But if your main intention in life is to find the truth, which obviously is for only a few percentage of people, most people they're just like living let's say unconscious life, and their utopia is to just have a good life or be wealthy and so on. They're not concerned mostly with what is the truth and who am I and so on. So everything we do is about ourselves. If a person wants to grow spiritually, then he does everything in a way that is supporting that spiritual growth, whether that's business or anything else. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I love that. Basically, you're saying if you're not inquisitive, then chances are you're ignorant and are just going through the motions of this dream we call this perceived reality. But if you're curious about learning yourself, as I understand, and I'm just trying to summarize what you just mentioned, and I want to know what is the truth behind like life, being alive, or the meaning of life, then that is very naturally spirituality by the very definition of it. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah.
And what is the antidote to ignorance then? Like, I mean, do we have a responsibility to wake others up? Do we have a responsibility to maybe even speak about it? Like, what is the purpose of this podcast, let's say?
Everybody has a different duty, different responsibility according to their nature. It's called dharma. in Hinduism. It's a very beautiful concept. Actually, Dharma has two meanings. One is your life mission, and the other one is the universal Dharma or the laws of universe. But anyways, you brought up the antidote to ignorance. The antidote to ignorance is very simple. The antidote to darkness is light. The antidote to ignorance is knowledge. So why I was saying that in order for those people who have blind beliefs or they're too sure of themselves, they need to open their mind and study. Not to prove they're right, but to find out if there is a different perspective of truth. In that way, they can find the antidote and free themselves and others from that suffering.
Thank you. Can good karma and virtues wipe your bad karma?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so. It's just like not exactly like that, but it's just like a scale. If you create good karma, Buddhists call this merit, for example. If you create good karma, it can help you become a stronger or more capable to attract things that help you clear your bad karma. As long as spirituality actually in advanced meaning of it is concerned, you're not either after good karma or bad karma, and good karma directly doesn't make you free, because in Hinduism, Buddhism, they consider both type of karma as bondage. As long as you think you are the doer, oh, I'm this person, I'm doing a good thing, even for example, Jesus said that some people do a good thing or they donate money just to be praised and put their name in the synagogue, say, oh, this guy donated this much for this project. Then he said, when you do a good thing, do it in a way, in a discreet way, so nobody even sees it. Why? Because you don't want to have a sense of ego and saying, oh, I did a good thing, because again, it becomes bondage. There is a very simple story in Hinduism. They say there is a bird that is stuck to the ground with two chains. One is a golden chain, and another one is, let's say, an ugly, corroded chain. So both chains prevent the bird from flying, if I narrated the story correct, but it's pretty much like that. So when it comes to a spirituality, your intention is not to go to heaven. Your intention is to know yourself and become free from being reborn and suffer and so on. The intention is oneness and self realization, enlightenment, whatever it's called. So, good karma definitely in a spiritual path helps, but as long as you do it as yoga explains it and calls it karma yoga, which means you do it as a sort of offering to God or as a service, not to get something out of it, but just to forget actually yourself in the process and become free of your own suffering. When you think about wellness of others, you do acts of service, you kind of forget yourself. Even positive psychology explains this and says one of the greatest things that can make you happy long term is being dedicated to a good cause like serving humanity and so on. It gives you a deep sense of satisfaction and it's actually serving you. But when you see others as a part of yourself and serving, it becomes a meditation. It becomes a spiritual process for making you free. Again, not because you want to get something good out of it, but because you want to approach God, truth, with that act. You offer everything to God as a means for getting closer to God.
Thank you. I love this topic, especially karma. But before I ask my next question, would you mind defining karma as you understand it? Because I know in the modern day, a lot of people use the wrong definition. And you mentioned doing and devotion, being of service. And I wanted to link all of them. But let's define what karma is, if you don't mind.
Sure. Karma can be explained either very simply or in a very elaborate, complex way. You can explain different types of karma and all those things, or This type of karma comes from your past life according to Hinduism. This type of karma you can remove, this kind of karma you can't remove, and those kind of stuff. But basically the word karma itself means action. So when they use that to explain the concept, they mean whatever that you do, it leaves an imprint on your mind, your body, and your soul in a way. And that imprint, especially if it's a bad karma, it causes you to sink spiritually. So karma actually is not only what you do with your body, let's say stabbing somebody, it's also what you do with your words as well as with your thoughts. Even your thoughts create karma, and we are constantly creating karma. The way to stop creating karma is to grow spiritually and start detaching from our actions and disidentifying with the organs of action, body and mind and so on. And there's a very beautiful concept, if I can call it concept, in Zoroastrianism, ancient Persian religion. The main slogan of the religion is good thoughts, good words, good acts. And this is a motto that helps you get closer to truth by keeping your vibration, your energy in a healthy and positive way. Everything is karma. See, again, going back to that whole concept of vibration, if we consider the 10th floor of a building to be a god, and the lowest floor to be like, I don't know, Satan, bondage, and Satan and God and whatever, there are symbolic explanations here. So you want to stay at the bottom floor, or you want to move towards the bottom floor, or you want to ascend to the higher floor. So that depends on the type of attitude that you have, karma that you make with your body, mind, and speech. And that brings me to the more important thing, which I kind of mentioned, that your intention that you have behind what you do determines the type of karma that you create. I gave an example of the doctor and the murderer that puts a knife inside somebody's body, one to do a surgery and save the guy, another to kill the person. So intention is very important. That's why if you ask any enlightened person, okay, I got into accident, I killed somebody. Did I do a bad karma, and am I going to get kind of the bad rewards for it? They would tell you, no, it's not the same type of karma. You accidentally ran over somebody and killed him. So intention is very important. Actually, intention is one of the most important principles in all of things that we do spiritually and other things. That determines where the energy goes and what consequences it has.
Thank you. So, to recap, if karma is our doing, and you mentioned by being of service to others, we can lose ourselves in things we've identified with and stop the suffering. Why is there so much ignorance still in 2025? So much theft, so much, as a mediator, I can testify there's so much conflict at home, in business, with business partners, life partners. It's mind-boggling that humanity is still struggling on a very basic level to understand that for every action there's an opposite and equal reaction, which is a law of physics. But why, when we sort of transimpose those ideas to living a balanced life, as you wrote about in your book, The Art of Balance, it becomes difficult for people to comprehend the importance of devotion, the importance of being of service.
I think everything goes back to the collective consciousness. From a highest perspective, this is a word of duality. Everything has a meaning by its opposite. And then why is still a lot of ignorance? I think this is the evolution of human beings as a collective, as a whole, that is happening. And we have that concept of 4 ages in the Indian sciences and astrology and so on, that in certain ages, just like nature has like 4 seasons. Certain qualities exist, and in the spring of the age of spring of the humanity, let's say, people are really spiritually advanced and evolved, and in the winter they're kind of, there's a lot of like wars and ignorance and so on. That's the explanation they give it. I don't know why you asked me. I didn't create the word, but I think that's the way that they explain it. And I think the only way to raise the humanity is to create that positive influence. Everybody can make an impact, but we are so afraid of sharing things, most of us, and having a positive impact for many reasons. I don't know why, but when we do even an act of service, something as simple, it has its own impact. We can also role model for others. Instead of me in a gathering, let's say, if I got insulted, I insult back or I get angry. If I demonstrate some kindness, then it definitely impacts more or less the people that are there, and they might even get transformed. Who knows? I think that's why Jesus said, if somebody slapped you on your right cheek, turn the other cheek. That has a very deep meaning. I think one meaning is that you don't want to slap back and create another karma. If somebody slapped you and not 1 million other people, it means there was a karma or something that you were supposed to experience. And then by responding with kindness, you free yourself and in some way the other person. So that's what I think.
Thank you.
If you do you have any other questions that comes to mind you want to explain, or
No, thank you. I feel very complete, and exactly the one phrase that came to my mind was that same quote from Jesus Christ, that, turning the other cheek, because to me that's one perfect example of Abrahamic religion teaching about tolerance, which is very different than previous traditions.
okay, thank you everybody for listening. God bless everybody.